Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as the chairman acknowledged, we didn't start at 10. We started nearly an hour late, or just over an hour late, because he and his Republican colleagues had prioritized a meeting with Donald Trump over a committee hearing. And presumably they received their latest marching orders to weaponize congressional power against our criminal justice system, because that's what we're seeing here today. It's outrageous. Over and over again, this Congress, we've seen House Republicans set aside congressional work, the people's business, to do the former president's bidding, as he seeks to avoid justice and accountability for his numerous misdeeds. Their members, including the House Speaker, have spent hours injecting themselves into these state court proceedings and standing outside the Manhattan courthouse instead of working on legislative business to serve the American people. They don't seem to understand that they were elected to serve their constituents, not the disgraced, twice impeached, and now convicted leader of the party. So why are we here in today's hearing? Because 2 weeks ago, a jury of Donald Trump's peers, 12 American citizens, found him guilty of criminal conduct. Now, those jurors were selected by both the prosecution and Mr. Trump. Those jurors considered all of the evidence presented to them by the prosecution and by the former president, not just the evidence or, as is so often the case, the alternative facts that are selectively presented by social media, cable pundits, or political spin doctors, including some of those here today. Because unlike our political sphere, that's how our justice system works. The jurors performed their civic duty, they did their job, and when they applied the law to the evidence, they determined that the former US president was guilty of 34 felonies. Now, having a former president found guilty of criminal conduct is a sad day for our nation. But it's sadder still that the former president is using his allies here on the Hill to attack our courts and undermine the rule of law, and that members of Congress are debasing themselves and this institution to embrace his conspiracy theories and lies. Unfortunately, these attacks upon the very foundations of our government to prop up the former president have become the norm for their party. When Donald Trump couldn't bend journalists' coverage to his will, MAGA Republicans echoed his attacks on the free press. When American voters rejected Donald Trump's first re-election bid, MAGA Republicans helped him sow chaos, confusion, and conspiracy theories to drive his attempts to overturn that election. And now when a New York state jury trial has resulted in Donald Trump's first criminal conviction, MAGA Republicans are attacking the state's prosecutor, the judge, the witnesses, and the jury. And as several other criminal cases against the former president head to trial, House Republicans are introducing legislation to fire prosecutors, to defund the Department of Justice, and to deny states the authority to prosecute crimes committed in their jurisdictions. Disturbingly, we now see this pattern of behavior anytime anyone tries to hold the former president accountable for his words or actions. House Republicans have been trying to interfere in the New York State case since its inception, even though such interference violates both our constitutional separation of powers and our federalist system. Every step of the way, House Republicans have attempted to insert the federal government into a purely state and local matter without any credible pretense of jurisdiction. And they're continuing their outrageous, unproven accusations against the Manhattan District Attorney's Office with this hearing. Republicans say that they're the party of law and order until their chosen candidate for president is convicted, and they claim to support states' rights until a state court rules in a way that they dislike. The truth is that America is built upon the idea that no one is above the law, including former presidents and their allies, and these shameless attempts to subvert our most fundamental American institutions threaten the rule of law that our country is built upon. So, Ambassador Eisen, why is it dangerous for members of Congress to try and influence the outcome and attack the legitimacy of a criminal court and a free and fair trial, and how does it threaten judicial independence?
The genius of the American project lies in our federalism, our checks and balances, the laws, starting with the Constitution, that reinforce staying in your lane. When I worked in the White House, it was the first rule: stay in your lane, and that's the rule for a functioning democracy as well. There's no place, just like there was no place for Donald Trump to tell Brad Raffensperger in January 2021, just, quote, find 11,780 votes. There's no place for Congress to be meddling in these state prosecutions.
Thank you. And I see my time's expired, although there has been a fairly loose gavel. But I'd ask,
Mr. Armstrong is even more generous than Chairman Jordan.
I would just ask unanimous consent to introduce an article from this morning's Politico entitled "Trump's Private Demand to Johnson Help Overturn My Conviction."